I have a different mix just in case. And again, which is the amazing thing, the band did the exactly the same as the first take. Beefheart had a knack of calling Frank no matter what, if he had an idea or something, and calling him and saying, hey Frank, listen to this. And one of the tracks called The Blimp, the Mothers had been working on a piece called Charles Ives, which actually wound up on a later compilation. But while they were working on it, and it was the tapes were really queued up, Beefheart had called and said, Frank, you got to listen to this poem I just wrote. Jeff Cotton, Antenna Jimmy Siemens, I guess is what his name was, wants to recite this for you. And he goes, hey, Frank, it's the blimp, it's the blimp. You know, and he goes through this big spiel, you know, about the blimp, okay? And Frank's recording the phone conversation. And while he was recording it, he was actually recording it on the master tape of the Charles Ives piece.
Okay, go.
Master, this is recorded through a fly ear, and you have to have a fly's eye to see it. It's the thing that's gonna make Captain Beefheart and his magic band fat. Frank, it's the big hit. It's the blimp, Frank, it's the blimp.
When it came out on the record, that is actually the Mothers behind one of the Beefheart members saying his rap right there. So the blimp is really the Mothers with one of the members of the Beefheart band.
Although Zappa was investing a large amount of his time into his new Bizarre Records acts, the Mothers did continue their activities in 1969, touring the United States, Great Britain and Canada. The Mothers of Invention had indeed achieved the fame that had been promised the original members of the Soul Giants several years earlier. But as a band, they were still not making anything in the way of real money, and Zappa decided that time was up.
First, Frank and I were having breakfast, and we were playing a jazz festival in, I think it was Charlotte, North Carolina. And we were having breakfast and just talking, BSing back and forth about certain stuff. All of a sudden he said, you know, I'm thinking about breaking up the band. And I went, no. I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, I just want to go another direction. And I said, oh man, I said, I don't understand. And I said,
well, we'd come back from a very successful tour, and I called Frank to ask him about when are we going to rehearse next, and what's going on, where's the next tour going? He said, oh, by the way, I've decided to break up the band. Your salaries have stopped as of last week. So that was what he said. That was pretty heavy and pretty cold, man.
We all went up to his house, and the meeting proceeded. They passed out these sheets with figures and whatever, and basically it said, for the last 6 months we've been losing money, to the point that the band owes Frank and Herbie, it was, I don't know, $20,000. And we all went there expecting to be able to divide up some money, whatever, and again, the same result. So Frank said, you know what, I'm going to call it even, and you can take the amplifiers that you've been playing with, and basically that was the way the band ended.
I don't know how you lose money when you're packing places and you're the headliner. Don't you get paid so much money for doing this shit? You know? It wasn't costing him that much money for the band. $250 a week was our salary before taxes.
I think I would have to say that everybody was complete shock. It was like this, it's like that you've been married to this woman for 10 years and you're in love with her and she says, I'm leaving you. I mean, it was that kind of a feeling.
The big disappointment was that I thought we were, in that last year, being very successful, you know, playing large venues a lot. You know, I mean, that just kind of defied some logic there. But I knew that, you know, we were actually going to, you know, miss playing the music and a lot of other things and the camaraderie that we had within the band.
I just think that it was wrong to break the band up. Financially, it was wrong. It was wrong for many reasons. And it was wrong for us to accept that. We didn't have to, because we were all equal partners. But we thought we had to, so we did.
Go cry on somebody else's shoulder. I'm somewhat wiser now, and one whole year older.
Something Mothers of Invention fans regret to this day. Zappa disbanded the Mothers of Invention. Jimmy Carl Black, the drummer, his line on it is, "If we'd stuck together, look how big we could have been. Look at the Grateful Dead." Maybe they could have become a Grateful Dead. Zappa was a boss, and bosses have the habit, when things aren't going too well for them, of looking at the accounts and deciding they'll let some people go. And that was really how the Mothers of Invention received it. One of them said he felt like throwing up when he heard the news, because they thought they had a steady income, they were safe, they were doing something they loved, it was all working, and suddenly Zappa says, there's no more wages, that's it, I'm going solo.
Frank Zappa only was interested in one artist, Frank Zappa. By disbanding the early Mothers of Invention, he kept Frank Zappa the constant item in the next version of the Mothers of Invention. Eventually there were no more Mothers of Invention. It was only Frank Zappa. Frank Zappa was the act that he was most interested in. The Mothers of Invention was the stepping stone.
Those were the best musicians that he had played with, even though there were, I don't know how many lineups between 65 and 68. Taken all together, those were the best musicians that he ever played with. And although Frank Zappa, much more than any of those musicians, was responsible for the success of the Mothers, musically and artistically and commercially and everything else, the Mothers were necessary. Those particular incarnations of the Mothers were necessary to make the music as good as it was. I don't think he ever recaptured that. I think he should have at least tried to keep a chord together with Bunk Gardner, Don Preston, Jimmy Carl Black, Roy Estrada, Ray Collins if possible. Maybe augment them as needed, but there's a synergy in those records that was never replicated, either by Frank Zappa's subsequent records or by other bands who were trying to combine avant-garde, rock, comedy, and social commentary.
Despite the demise of the band, Zappa went on to release 2 more albums of their work, Burnt Weenie Sandwich and Weasels Ripped My Flesh. Over the coming years, all of the original members would work with Frank again on various projects, and Zappa would go on to reform the Mothers with different musicians. None, however, were as influential, pioneering, creative, or naturally comical as the original Mothers of Invention.
I had a good time with those guys. It was a nice feeling to play in the best band in the world in the 60s, and I'll always think that we were the best band in the world. Nobody will ever convince me otherwise.